So now I'm going to finish up installing this landing gear on the trailer here. I'm going to cut these axles off. Now if I wanted them absolutely flush, I would use a knife. But I think if I use these flush cutting pliers, they get really close but not exactly flush. So there will be a little bit of a visible circle, like a center axle, and just to add a little bit more visual interest, so it doesn't just look like a blob of plastic. It will give the illusion, hopefully, that there are multiple parts that make this thing up. It's not just something simple and cast. Okay, so these are going to get glued on to the sides. One here and one on that side. And I was thinking about it, and while these pads are, you can't really see it that way, this kind of works. The pads fall just outside the rails. Well, I noticed on the video that I watched that when these wheels were flipped down, they in fact rode right on top of the rail head. So that spacing is correct. Obviously with this one, it's the same body as this, and they're spaced farther apart. So when these go on, they're going to be slightly outboard of the rails, which I don't know how it's going to look. So I decided that I'm just going to have to try it and see how they look. These things are hard to open. Just use this part of the flush cutting pliers, like a little soft gripper. Just another little tip. Alright, so I'm just going to use a little bit of glue, just enough to tack it in place. And if I end up liking the placement, then I'll just reinforce this joint with a little bit of styrene plastic. Just got to make sure these are cut off before I do too much assembly. So one of these is going to go. Let's use this for a little stability. I guess I should have trimmed this up a little bit more before I put the glue on. That's okay. I just saw a little bit of a burr right along here, so I wanted to clean that up first. Alright, so this will go right about there. And this one will go on this side right about here. Oops. This glue might have already set up just a little bit. Put a little pressure there. Now in order to keep these at a consistent height, I just made a quick little pad that I'll put on the track. Either way, doesn't matter. It's just some scrap that I had lying around. And I believe it'll be at the right height. I don't do too much testing off camera because I want this to be kind of like a learning experience as well as an instructional video. So you'll see how I solve the little issues that pop up. So with this coupled onto the adapter truck, this thing, that will hold this end of the trailer at the right height. And then with the wheels on, obviously this side will hold these at the right height. As long as I keep a little bit of pressure here. I see I want to come down a bit, which is not a problem on this one. Oh, I'm going to have to take this apart. Okay. Looks like this glue sets up pretty quick. I don't know if that's indicative of the age of the glue or not. This one's going to have to come down a little bit as well. Glue string I can see. Let's try this one more time. Put the Roadrailer on there. This goes here and this will slide underneath. Whoa. If I would have made this from scratch, this little spacer, I would have made it a bit wider, a little bit longer, because this is obviously just a little bit too short. And you can see there, or maybe you can't, that I don't want it to be any closer to the railhead than this. And that's not a measured thing. It's just a measurement that I took from the first, the prototype Roadrailer that I'd made. Make sure that's on the rails. I'm doing it in this position just so the camera can see the spacing here. But anyway, once I assemble this and get it all the right height, yeah, they do look like they stick out, or they're close to the edges. But you know, I don't think that's a huge problem. It doesn't look, to me, I'm not really super into semi-trailers, but that looks pretty reasonable to me. height-wise and width-wise. You see there are those two. They're similar. The problem I'm wondering about is when these are coupled together. I'll have to adjust that a little bit. But one of the landing gear, this one looks like it's out further from the end, because it is from the edge. And it might look a little kind of funny. I don't know, I don't think it's too bad. The alternative would be to take these posts down, cut them out, and slide them over here somewhere, you know, slide them in closer. Now I could do that, but I firmly glued all these things in place. Maybe I will. I'll have to sleep on it and see just how much it bugs me. So right now, I'll be honest, it kind of bugs me. That's a pretty big difference. Although the trailers are a little different. This one's got more rounded corners, more square corners. So that'll have to be a judgment call, because the next one, I have one more trailer to build. And if I build that one to match this one, I'll have three the same. If I move this one in to match this, then I'll have to move that one in to match this. I think I'm going to go back and watch the video to see just how far out those look. I'll have to go and put them on the layout and really get a kind of a ground level view, something similar to what was in the video. You know, because those look pretty close to the edge. Like I say, that's going to be something I'm going to sleep on and think about. So that one is just my test, the prototype. So this one's very close to being, well, I guess it could just go on the rails right now. You know, that would work just fine. I'll have to work out this coupling thing, and I think what I'm going to do is end up bending this in. Actually, I could probably do that now. What I want is a nice sharp bend. And how am I going to do that? Let's see. I suppose I could use something rigid. I don't really want to use the scale for that, because if I scratch this up, you know, you have to take care of your tools. If you scratch this up, then it won't be good for a scale anymore. So this, if I hold this down, first of all, if I make this parallel here, if I press down hard, just bend that over slightly. It's not a huge bend. I think it's just enough to get it closer to that bumper. This would be a lot easier if I would just take the underframe off of the shell. things go too smoothly, it's not really very exciting, is it? So now that grabs it a bit better. Oh, see, it's why I don't like working on things while the glue is still dry, still wet rather. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna have to work on the this coupling mechanism. I have to bend this wire around a little bit more. But first I want to let this glue dry and let this set up. Actually, I'm afraid that this is a little too weak. And I guess if I'm gonna end up cutting that landing gear back, I could save the parts, but because I have plenty of 40,000 strip, I might just cut it all out and rebuild it from scratch again. It won't be that big of a deal. Originally I didn't want to put too much glue on here, so if I didn't like it, then I could just kind of break the glue joint because it wouldn't be that strong. But I think because I moved this around so much, I weakened the joint too much. So there they look about level. This one I didn't mess with too much, so it should be okay. So I'm just going to put this aside and let this glue dry. And then I'll have to rethink this coupling mechanism, rear bumper arrangement. We'll see how that works. And then with the coupler done and this spike on the front done and all the running gear done, then I can test it. I'll put it on the layout and I'll at least have a string of 3. This doesn't have the rear coupler and it's not exactly finished, but I think it'll make a decent stress test to make sure that things work okay. Once the mechanicals work, and I know this is a rail-worthy model, then I think I can start working on the grab irons, the stirrup steps, and a few of the details like that. But until this glue dries, or it sets up, whatever you want to say, I'm just going to have to wait. So, time to wait.